All right.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready when you are. Go.
Oh, okay. I want to tell a beautiful story about Msgr Joe Bourgeois. And I know he wasn't very well liked by many people in the parish, but they didn't know him like I did. I worked very closely with him. And to me, he was the most unpretentious, empathetic, merciful, non-judgmental priest I've ever known. And it's just a shame that, he wasn't given a chance. And the story I would like to tell, when I was working there as a director of religious education, the sidewalk leading from the shrine to what used to be the rectory was poured, and while the cement was wet, a little tiny handprint appeared in the wet cement. So, of course, Father Joe was wondering who would have done such a thing. So he kind of was okay with it, and he just told the ladies in the office to call and have it repoured. Well, lo and behold, another little handprint in the wet cement. So he asked me to go around and see if I could find out who did it. And I said, Father Joe, there's no way anybody's going to admit this to me. But I did. I went into the classrooms. I talked with the teachers. Couldn't find out anything. So he decided to have the cement poured again. Third time, the little handprint. So by then, he was kind of upset, and rightfully so. Well, about a week later, he walked into the rectory early one morning and just smiling. And I said, Father Joe, you're in such a good mood this morning. And he said, well, I found out whose little handprint that was in the sidewalk. I said, who? He said, well, I don't know. She's a third grader. I just heard her confession. Her mother dared her to confess it to me. And I said, what did you do? And he threw his arms up in the air, like looking up to heaven. And he said, I forgave her. What else could I do?
Aww.
And I just think that, that's what a priest should be like, forgiving and non-judgmental. And I have so many wonderful little stories about him, but that one in particular really stands out. And I was like, oh, this poor man doesn't deserve this, and they just wanted him out of there. But, he grew up very poor, and he would tell me stories about his childhood that would just break your heart. And I think people, just didn't realize what a hard life he had. And just so real and genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I would like that little story about confession to be told. And he is the one who had the plaque put outside of the confessionals, the prodigal son.
Oh, yeah.
He was the one who had that put up. So it was just very forgiving. Like, like a priest should be.
Yeah, I love that story.
I know, but you have to see him to do it, because, he was so jolly when he entered the rectory and just smiling. And when he put his arms up in the air and looked up to heaven, he just said, I forgave her. What else could I do?
Oh, that's
and it was just so cute.
Yeah.
But he never said who did it.
Well, he couldn't, huh?
Exactly. And so we never did ever find out. But I just think it's a cute story,
It
and
really
I hope. So,
I like that.
Okay.
Is there any other stories you want to share with me?
Well, just a lot of different things that went on with the kids at school, and he was just always so laxed about things, like, I don't want to mention any other priest names, but they would have just been, outraged by some things, and he was just very calm and laxed about things. And he really didn't avail himself to the children a lot because he was very shy. And I knew he liked pizza. And so one year for Christmas, when I had that, well, we used to call it CCD, but it's Parish School of Religion now, I kept trying to coerce him to come to our Christmas party. And he kept saying, no, I don't feel comfortable about it. And I said, we're having pizza and brownies. And he said, well, what do you do there? And I said, well, we play, like scripture bingo. And, we just, have a good little Christmas party. And we give gifts to the kids when they, win at bingo. And I said, just think about it. And this particular year, Jules Lamont dressed like Santa Claus. And, the kids would go up to Jules. Well, all of a sudden, everybody was shocked because in walked Father Joe. And he had never done that before. He was very shy. And he sat down at a table filled with children, and he ate pizza, and he told them stories. And it was just really almost like that little nudge that, that I kept asking him to, to come to the party. I don't know what struck him, but he opened up and he, started availing himself more, and it was really good. So, but I mean, I have other stories, too many to tell, but I just want people to know him like I knew him.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Oh, that you see, that is so wonderful and so priestly and so pastoral, you know, and I don't even know if I should tell you, about his childhood, but if people understood that, I know you're aware of the drinking problem, but that itself, for him to stand at every Mass and admit to the congregation at every Mass that he had a drinking problem. I know so many priests who are alcoholics, and they would never do that. That was the most humbling thing to me, and it brought tears to my eyes that he, just stood there and, asked for our mercy.
Yeah.
Because he was so merciful, but it's just a shame how poor he was and how he grew up and, the stories he used to tell me. And he was a fantastic cook. He used to cook for us, and he would make paella. I think that's how you say it, Paella, paella.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that man could cook. He was like, and it was like, when I was moved from the school over to where Monsignor Duke's house was, that was my office, he would call and tell me that he made paella and to come over and eat, and he would cook for us a lot, the deacons and the staff, and, it was just really nice to sit there and share a meal with him, and he'd tell us stories, and we just all kind of bonded,
Yeah.
It was really nice. Well, thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, thank
with
you
me
for
about-
sharing it. Yeah. If you think
a
of any
lot of-
more, I want you to call me back and we'll do this again.
Well, a lot of people are reluctant to go to confession because they're afraid, that a priest might be very judgmental. And he was just like he was supposed to be. He was Christ-like in the confessional. And I think, if we can get that out, that the priest is supposed to take the place of Christ at the altar and in the confessional, maybe more people wouldn't be so reluctant to go to confession. But I never had a problem with him, and, I worked very closely with him, and, he was just always, he never took sides.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other priests that you would say something and right away they say, oh, do this or do that. He was very welcoming to altar servers, not just altar boys. He accepted the girls as well as the boys. Everyone was treated equally. And, it was just a really nice feeling that I got from him and that I was able to pass on to the teachers and to the children. So I'll think of some more stories, but that was one that really stood out, and I mentioned it to Diane Sunday, and she said, oh, you need to call that. That's a good story.
That is a great story, and we'll make sure to get it, probably in the book somewhere. And
okay, and make sure that everybody knows that he was instrumental. He's the one that ordered that prodigal son wall art.
Yeah, I had that, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It is a beautiful statue. I like that statue, yeah.
Yes, I do too. Well, thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and I miss the children so much. And
okay, go ahead.
The altar server Alps were in the worst condition you could imagine. They were filthy dirty. They had burn marks, holes in them. And I noticed that the morale was down. The altar servers didn't really like wearing these albs. So I would take them home and wash them and bleach them. Well, finally I asked Father Joe, I said, Father Joe, is there any way that I could get new albs for the altar service? Without any hesitation, he said, of course. He said, just let me know where you're getting them and how much they are. And I ordered them, and I held a meeting after school in the church, and I sent home a letter to the parents saying, that they were welcome to come, but I would be measuring the children from shoulder to ankle, because I didn't want to be accused of any inappropriate touching.
Right.
And that we were getting new albs. Well, when we got the new albs in, these children were so happy to serve at the altar. They took care of the albs. They didn't throw them on the floor. They really respected them. And I said, we need to thank Father Joe. And so it was really cute because, whenever they were scheduled to serve, I could see some of them saying, thank you for the new albs. So it really kind of, built their esteem a little bit and made them more eager and, wanting to be able to serve at the altar because they felt like they looked nice, and
right.
they did.
Yeah. Huh.
So, but he never hesitated to do anything for the children. Whatever was good for the children, he was perfectly okay with. We had an all-school mass, and a non-Catholic fifth-grade boy didn't want to be left out at communion time, and he went up to receive the Eucharist, and he didn't know what to do with it, so he put it in his shoe.
Oh.
And at recess, he told the teacher that he had the Eucharist in his shoe. And they were calling for me, but I was in a meeting with Father Joe. So one of the teachers had to receive the Eucharist from this boy's shoe. And she called me and she said, thanks a lot. She said, that sock and shoe were so wet and sweaty. I know, and I said, I'm so glad I didn't have to, but, it's just, the kids were just like, funny too, and you don't get to know all of that unless you're really in the school with them,
Right, right.
But, and then one time for confession, we had, it was for reconciliation, first reconciliation. We always would get different priests to come, and they would sit at different stations to hear the children's confession because, we only had the 2 confessionals. And I was trying to make the children feel comfortable about confession, and, a lot of them were nervous. And I said, you don't have to be nervous. If you forget anything, just tell them the priest will help you, whichever priest you go to. Well, after one little girl went to confession, she said, piece of cake. and so some of the parents who were sitting by her started laughing in a low tone of voice. And everybody else that was in that line to go to that priest, when they came out, they all said, piece of cake, piece of cake. And I told Father Joe, and he said, you didn't stop them? And I said, no, I wanted them to have that wonderful experience, because my first confession, we had a priest at St. Dominic, and he was yelling at the boys, and these kids were really scared, and they were like, we're not ever going to confession to him again. And I wanted these kids to have a really nice, experience for their first confession. And after the whole ceremony was over, we sang This Little Light of Mine. And one of the little girls on the front pew, after the song was over, she threw the booklet up in the air and went, yee-haw. And Father Joe looked at me, and I'm like, okay, proper church behavior, So I went into the sacristy where all the priests were disrobing, and I apologized, and I said, over here at St. Anne, we really emphasize to the children about proper church behavior. And it was Father Jose Lavestida, and I don't even remember there were 2 other priests, and they laughed, and they said, we really enjoyed it, it was cute. And I said, well, thank you for being so understanding. I said, I think the children were just so excited. And Father Joe was just grinning from ear to ear. He was so happy, that the kids enjoyed their first confession.
Yeah.
Because it is scary, and, they don't always know. I used to do, moot confession, and I'd take the kids into the confessional, and I'd say, okay, now, we're going to go through everything, but your sins, because I just want to see if you know the proper procedure. And that kind of made them feel a little more at ease, too, They were ready for the first confession because they had already gone into the confessional and they knew what to expect. But I just mainly am trying to emphasize how kind and merciful Father Joe was. And a lot of people might not have seen that side of him.
Definitely.
But
well,
to me, he always was. And I just would like for him to get a little bit of recognition. So thank you for listening, Debbie.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for calling and sharing all this with us.